Today's video takes us back to a fascinating conversation between Imam Mohamad Tawhidi and Candace Owens. They tackle one of the most explosive questions of all time, the conflict between Islam and Judaism, and whether Jerusalem truly belongs to Muslims at all. This was recorded a few years back when Candace was still at PragerU, and at that time she had completely different views on Israel and Judaism. Watch until the very end and let us know in the comments below what stood out most to you in this powerful conversation.
Correct. And you cannot remove Islam from Judaism. Judaism is the foundation. The Kaaba, you know, the black cube that the Muslims pray to in Mecca and circulate around, the Kaaba was built by Abraham.
Right.
Abraham is a Jewish prophet.
So where does this... I guess what I'm trying to ask is that I think it would be fair to say that there is hostility between Muslims and Jews. Is that a fair statement to make?
More than hostility, there's war.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I want to try to hear carefully so I don't get myself into too much trouble. So where does that come from? Because from my understanding, it's in the textbooks that Islamics follow. Right. It's in the textbooks that they should be hostile towards Jews. Is that correct?
They must and obliged to be hostile towards Jews. But
so do you see it's a bit paradoxical to then say that, well, we got this from the Torah, but we're hostile towards Jews. So just can we make sense of that?
Yes, we can. Time difference. Time. If we put everything into context, it will all be clarified. I'm a Shia Muslim. Shia Muslim means the Shia regime in Iran, they're Shia Muslim. Hezbollah are Shia Muslim. I'm a Shia Muslim. They're militants, I'm not.
Okay.
So we both believe in the same God, in the same Prophet, in the same foundations. One is an Islamist. They believe in violent means to spread the religion. I don't.
But how can this be? So I'm trying to grapple with this.
I just want to answer your question.
Yeah, sorry. I get so interested. Go ahead.
Your question. Before 1979, we Shia, we never had a problem with the Jewish people. No problem. You know why? Because we have nothing to do with Palestine.
Right.
We Shia, our holy sites, Mecca, Medina, and what's in Iran and Iraq. We have nothing to do with Palestine.
That's correct.
When the revolution happened, to politicize the Muslim narrative and to get the Muslim community hyped up, we said the Quds, Jerusalem is ours. But it's not. It's not ours. 1979 onwards, the war happened. The Islamic teachings can never separate themselves from the foundations of Judaism, monotheism, the belief in God, the prophets. We share so many prophets. Jesus was a Jew. Muslims love Jesus. Abraham, Daniel, Isaac, Habakkuk, name me any prophet. They're all Jewish. And they are Islam's prophets. If you deny one of them, you can't be a Muslim.
So are you saying then that the entire argument surrounding whether or not Jerusalem belongs to the Muslims or the Jews was just propaganda that was fueled after the 1979?
For the Shia side, yes.
Yes.
Shia side, yes. For the Sunni side, no. The Sunnis genuinely believe, and that's the majority. Again, the problem, Candace, with my reading is that it's the minority.
Yeah, but that is the problem. So I think it's unfair to say, well, the minority of people believe this, right? If we acknowledge that the majority of people that follow Islam believe in this sort of violent interpretation, in this anti-Semitic interpretation, right? How can we allow this to permeate into Western civilization and continue to call it the religion of peace?
Well, I don't call it a religion of peace.
You don't?
I don't.
So why do you think we do?
Because I don't know. It sounds nice.
But there has to be a better reason. No, is it funded? Is it...
No, it's not funded. It just sounds nice. Obama says it.
Yeah.
That's it. He said it.
That's it.
There's no foundation for that whatsoever.
But how do we end it? So I told you the first time I learned about this was in a textbook in school. So my entire upbringing through the public school system, I was told to believe this. And that
did you study in Saudi Arabia?
I didn't.
It sounds like you studied in Saudi Arabia.
Just basic, like I literally remember the book that I read in third grade and them telling the story of the three kings. And it was basically just like a soft introduction to different religions. We would all celebrate, around Christmas and Hanukkah time. And we were supposed to get to know the various religions that were in the classroom. Very innocent, right? But what's incredible to me is that everything that you're telling me is new, right? So if you ask the average American to say, do you know this about the Quran? Do you know this about the Hadith? Am I saying that correct? About the Hadith, they don't. We're largely ignorant about it. And yet, the second anything happens that is extremist or anything that's radical, the first thing that comes out of the mouths of every single person is that it's a religion of peace. And there's almost this sadness, and that not the same sadness and sympathy that is given to Christians.
No.
So why is
nowhere
that?
near. Largely because of the left and their agenda.
What is their agenda?
Their agenda is power. This is what it is. They don't care about any human being, any life. I have published a picture in my book of my uncle that was killed, burnt alive by ISIS. Why? Because...
Oh, I said, wow.
No, and why? Because the left funded ISIS. They did. And they've always done. The global movement of the leftists, the elite left, not only Hillary and Obama, the elite left have always been supportive of rebels to bring down governments and put their own socialist, globalist movements.
That is true. That is 100% true.
They want power.
Right.
And whenever something happens, the left and the extremists, and we have to speak about their unity, the left and the extremists unite to bring down characters.
Do you worry about your safety?
Of course I worry.
You worry about your safety?
I have a scar over here, look. A scar from all the attacks. My book, I've written about the struggles, my home being raided, my car being vandalized with machetes. I get punched in the face. All you have to do, Tawhidi attacked on Google. They come out. Look, Islam can never, ever, ever be reformed. Muslim individuals can. Islam as a religion cannot. Because, very logically, religion, according to Muslims, is the word of God. It came from God. No Muslim will leave what they believe to be the word of God and follow the word of Imam Tawhidi or the word of man. That's man-made.
Right.
Excuse me, that's man-made. And if it's man-made, then it's not what God wants. They want what is God's law, not what could be God's law. Two different issues. You're telling someone to completely convert. Reform is a conversion. Might as well go become a Jew or a Christian. Then never, never, ever. I say to the Muslim, let's be realistic. We have two readings of Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. Why go for the violent one? Why not read the minority teachings? That's what I say. The minority they also have problems. But they can be amended like how every other religion managed to amend the violent issues. It's on that level.
Right.
The bridges that I'm building with the Jewish community, with the Christian community, this keeps me going. Of course, my transition wasn't as easy as many people would think. I had to go through a very lonely and quiet and long period of my time where I had to somehow detach myself away from the indoctrination of the clerics and the training and everything. Even at times, because I was trained to shoot. And at times when I go to the shooting range, I remember when I was a young boy, how I would hold it. And these things, they bring back memories.
Who trained you to shoot?
When I was in Iran.
Okay.
And there's a video of me shooting. In fact, you might want to insert it.
Right.
I'm a really good shooter, and thanks to the regime and their people.
And you said that you used to be an extremist.
Fundamental. I would never speak to you 6 years ago.
Wow.
You would... Oh, no, this is treason. I would have never come here 6 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. But you did talk to me a little about before we got live. You said that you used to be an extremist and you were married and you got divorced, and you take full credit for the divorce because of your extreme views. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I was married to a wonderful woman who was raised in a fundamentalist society. And she had all of these teachings of wearing the full burqa, not even ninja, full black.
Wow.
And came from a prominent family. And, I was the ideal husband, an extremist who spoke many languages, traveled the world preaching fundamentalist Islam. And then all of a sudden, he's taking pictures with rabbis. He's taking pictures with bishops, female politicians. That's you can't explain it. That's a court case in Sharia law. A picture with a rabbi, you've waged war against God in a fundamentalist sense. Mm-hmm. and you're dealing with the people who are impure, the killers and murderers of prophets, and all these nonsensical terms. So, it was best for me to move on because I saw the path I was going in. She wasn't willing to join. Wonderful woman. I wish her all the best. But this happened in Iraq. It was never in the West. Otherwise, she would have seen how much freedom there is in the West and so on. So it's very hard. Also, her family had a lot of influence on her. But I see CARE and the Islamic organizations in America as unofficial embassies for these terrorist groups in the Middle East. And the left don't see that. The left, because of how narrow-minded they are, it's easy for them to say, Islamophobic. You're an ex-Muslim, a closeted ex-Muslim. A real Muslim can't be peaceful. Imam of Peace? What do you mean, Imam of Peace? You can't be a real Muslim, hugging rabbis? Really? Eating with Hindus and Buddhists? Muslims don't do that. Anjem Chaudhry, CARE, Ilhan Omar, they're the real Muslims. They're the ones, and everything they say that is ridiculous and disgusting, right? That's fine, because white guilt, we were the ones who oppressed them first. Now, Ilhan Omar isn't a danger in Congress. She's just a brown woman with an opinion. Why are you silencing her? The way they think is completely upside down.
Right.
And Ilhan knows that.
They will think themselves right into oppression. Right into oppression.
And when they bring Ilhan Omar on TV or Rashida Tlaib as to why are you creating chaos? Why are you attacking America, American values? Or because of my color? Or is it because of what I wear?
Yeah.
That's what Rashida Tlaib says. They're attacking her because of her color.
No.
Then again, David Duke comes out to say rally behind Ilhan Omar, who is the #1 guy against the black community, the KKK. He's promoting Ilhan. If the left don't wake up now that David Duke is coming up publicly telling them that, we really need to get behind Ilhan Omar. She knows what she's doing, pushing this agenda. If they don't wake up now to see that, what is she doing that even David Duke is supporting her? So David Duke and the leftists are now on the same page.
But I want to start from the beginning here. I want to go back into little girl Candace, the first time that I ever heard about Islam, the first time that I ever heard about, Muslims in the context of a political ideology or religion. And that was the first memory that I have was in 3rd grade. And we were reading a book and they were saying in this book that being a Muslim is just like being a Christian. Islam is exactly like Christianity, is exactly like Judaism. And we were told that the Prophet Muhammad is exactly like Jesus Christ. I believe this as a child. I think that a lot of Americans that are watching this can relate to this sort of the religion of peace. It's just like Christianity. Is any of that true?
I'm always getting in trouble because I like to be realistic. So some of it is true, most of it is not. And I say this because Christianity is very well organized. If you have a problem with a Christian church, you know who to turn to, you know who the hierarchy is, the Pope is the head of the Catholic Church. The same with Judaism, there's a rabbi, they have their own council. In Islam, there is no leading figure. It's either caliphs who lead Islamic governments, or leaders of communities, and that's endless. You can have 1,000 communities, which we do have in every country, and every community has its own leader. So you can't really hold anyone responsible for any theology, for any fatwas, for anything. And this is why the moment you point a finger when something happens from the Muslim community, the most of us say, it's got nothing to do with me, it's somebody else.
Right.
So whereby the Catholic Church, they can't run away from issues that happen within their church because it's an entire body that the world deals with. Islam doesn't have this body.
Okay. And what about particularly the figures, modeling yourself after Jesus Christ versus modeling yourself after the Prophet Muhammad? That's something that's very interesting to me. Let's just try to dissect that for a little bit, okay? So was the Prophet Muhammad, would you say he was a good man?
Right. The thing is, with this question itself, it's not a a fair question.
Okay.
Because you're speaking to a Muslim
Right.
from one school of thought, whereby Muhammad is seen differently by all schools of thought.
Okay.
So ISIS would say, yes, Muhammad went out, butchered, killed, did what he did, took slaves, booty, and that's the man we love, and that's what we're going to do, and we're going to follow him.
Okay. So he did butcher people.
According to an ISIS reading of his character.
Okay.
Then,
No, back up. According to an ISIS reading of his character. So what are they reading exactly that they're getting that interpretation of?
the traditions 100 to 200 years after the death of the Prophet that were compiled by Islamic scholars about what happened within the history of the prophetic era.
Okay. Is this found in the Quran?
The second most sacred book outside the Quran that interprets the verses in the Quran.
The Hadith.
The Hadith.
Hadith.
Yes.
Pardon.
No problem.
Okay.
So men interpret the Quran and it becomes sacred because it becomes promoted by governments. So, don't speak about this book. It's put on the shelf right beside the Quran, the Bukhari. And it influences all other Islamic denominations, including the Shia school of thought, which I belong to. And ISIS, for example, come and say, this is how Muhammad was, and we're going to follow him. Not only Muhammad, this is how Muhammad was and his caliphs. So if the caliphs are like that and they lived with him, then it's definitely how he was like. But then again, in my book, I also have to be balanced. There is the minority of Muslims. See, I say minority, which means I don't deny that the majority of Muslims
follow this interpretation.
Correct.
Okay, of who the Prophet Muhammad was.
Correct.
But there is a minority.
A minority. And when I say majority, I'm not speaking about the majority in schools of thought. So I'm not saying the Sunni Muslims. I'm saying the majority of Sunni and Shia Muslims believe that Muhammad was a man who went out for jihad and had no mercy whatsoever. And I'm not saying they believe it because they studied it. I'm just saying they revere books that hold these traditions. So an average Muslim, if you question them on the street and you say, is it true that Muhammad was a terrorist? They'll say, no. But in their own books, which they don't read because language barriers or they haven't been taught or only the Imam quotes it in Friday prayers, those books do teach, such as Bukhari, that Muhammad was a man who was violent.
Right. He was violent. He killed people. He raped people. And what you're telling me is that the majority, there is a minority, which we're going to get to in a second, but the majority of people who follow this understand that.
Not necessarily understand it, but they revere books.
Okay.
So just like how Christianity and Judaism, they have their holy books.
Not everybody reads the entire book.
Not everybody. But even those who memorize it, they just, like parrots, they repeat the words. They don't know what it's really saying.
Okay.
So yes, there is a reading of Prophet Muhammad, which is the most promoted one. The majority of people believe in. That is not a good reading. It's a violent one.
Okay.
Then we have to give right to the minority.
Okay.
Because the minority, they also have a voice. Why only focus on the extremists? Because they have more money, so they can print more, they can get into government, they are more powerful, so their brand gets more attention. But the minority also deserve to be heard, and the minority believe that Prophet Muhammad was only continuing what Jesus had come with, what Moses had come with. And yes, there were times of conflict, but it was in self-defense. And that's their reading of the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay.
Someone like me, I am a social reformist, not a reformist in religion. I focus on changing the Muslim society, the Muslim mentality, because I see it is not only capable of being changed, it is already changing. And I can give you countries, the UAE, Oman, Kuwait, where Americans and British love to work there and live there and honeymoon there. And it's a Muslim country where they build synagogues and temples and churches. So a Muslim society can change. A Muslim religion can never change.
Very interesting.
So I say, if we have two sources, both authentic, both dating back to the same era, both reliable, why do you follow the violent one?
Right.
Why not follow the peaceful reading?
Well, okay, so you're saying there is a minority of people that read this peacefully, but you are acknowledging that even under that interpretation, the Prophet Muhammad, there was in fact violence, right? So just to go back to my earlier question, it isn't fair to compare the historical figures of Jesus Christ and the Prophet Muhammad, because Jesus didn't slaughter anybody.
It's not right to compare, in my opinion.
Whether in self-defense or not, Jesus never killed anybody.
It's not right to compare any religious figure, any prophet or any messenger with any other messenger. And the reason why is because I come from a theological background. I know every message has its sacrifices and has its developments. And developments, it's a nice word, but it means wars, and it means battles, and it means exile, and it means fighting, and it means struggle and striving and conquering. Every religion throughout the history of time has had that, whether it be from the founder or his family members or companions.
Okay.
So it's not right to compare figures. Jesus in Islam is very, very revered, very sacred. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is considered the mistress of the universe, one of the mistresses of the universe. So she's very dear to Muslims, but why do they get killed and blown up in Easter? Sri Lanka, 300 people blown up, 700 injured. So there are contradictions with texts and applying them within the Muslim individual.
Right. But there isn't. So, and I think the reason why I'm saying that is because throughout our education system, these figures are always compared. And I'm not sure that that's fair, right? So what they're saying to Christians is, you know, if you don't view the Prophet Muhammad like you view Jesus Christ, it's because you're Islamophobic. And that seems really bizarre to me when factually speaking, we have two entirely different individuals. And one that is admittedly violent under any interpretation of Islam. You have to acknowledge that there was violence.
Not any.
Well,
most.
You said once it was in the minority community.
Right.
They acknowledge that there was violence, but they view that violence as defensive. Is that correct?
No, there's a big difference between battles and violence. Battles and war in the Arabian Peninsula is completely different from terrorism. Let's not mix these together.
Okay.
I have a problem with terrorism.
Right.
I don't have a problem when I read history and see there are two tribes who both are strong and powerful, want to go and settle it through violence.
Okay.
So I don't like war at all.
Right.
I don't like violence. But when I read history 1,400 years ago, and two tribes wanted to fight.
Right.
They wanted, both of them, so negotiations, and they came and they formed two alliances, and then they talked and there was no going back. And you know how they always speak to each other. And in the laws of wars, especially in the Arabians, they present the chiefs of each side and they speak to each other. Okay. Will you drop down your weapons and go back?
There is definitely, I think, a definitive difference between terrorism, where you're slaughtering millions of innocents who have no means for wanting war, and an actual battle where two people come. I actually really agree with that statement.
But again, I don't deny that there were massacres, even through the minority reading. I don't deny that. And I condemn it. But at the end of the day, I have one reading that has 10 massacres. And it says this happened in history.
Right.
It was part, again, the development of religion. It's already developed. And this happened in history. And it does not mean that you go out now and do it.
Right.
The majority, such as Bukhari and so on, they don't put a limit to their jihad. They don't put a limit to their struggle against the disbelievers and spreading the word of Allah.
Well, so here's the thing too. Here's another thing I want to talk about. The differences between the Bible and the Quran. Because that's another thing that seems to be conflated throughout the Western education system, whereas the Quran is just the Muslim Bible. This is what people are told. Is that true? I'm going to put the ball firmly in your court.
The Bible and the Quran, they head in different directions. And I will tell you why. Firstly, the Muslims today, all of them view the Bible that the Christians have as a book that was distorted. Okay. It's not the real Bible, according to the majority of them. I believe it is the real Bible because of the council that was formed and the verses were clearly filtered, and they said what we have today is the word of God. So the Muslims believe that no, the real Bible was changed. And every now and then there's one Bible in Turkey, one Bible here. The point is, Muslims, we like the Bible that says the word Ahmed, that says the word Muhammad, or a man will come after me, because then we establish the prophecy of Prophet Muhammad. You see where I'm going?
Right.
So that Bible is okay. All the new ones,
It's like bias confirmation.
the mosque has a problem with, and they don't wish to recognize. Now, one of the strongest arguments against Islam is that the Quran has taken a lot from the Bible and a lot from the Torah. So to say that they're completely different is not very accurate. That's why I don't say that. The Quran has a lot of similarities with the Bible. And that's one of the main arguments against Islam, that you guys don't bring anything new, right? But I don't believe that. I believe that because it's one God, it's an Abrahamic religion, the Torah will have similar teachings in the Bible, and the Bible will find similarities with it in the Quran. I believe that the human race is heading towards an era where people really need to unite against the extremist Muslims. The left has always been a big part of terrorism in the Middle East, sponsoring their wars and sponsoring rebels. I believe if they also say to themselves that instead of me doing what the left want us to do, what the elite left expect from us to say, and how to vote, then we should also rise against the extremists and unite with the rest of humanity, be it Jews, Christians, atheists, Buddhists, whatever. Unite against the threat that is really damaging our Western societies. Candace, I thank you very much for having me on your show.
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide, or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.